right, Jessica, masterclass. It's not really in dispute. So my question to you is, how big of a masterclass was this?
A few moments later.
While we were in the commercial break, Moody's downgraded our credit for the first time in the agency's history. So all good news all around, masterclass.
As is always the case with our sitting president, there's always a tweet. Donald Trump, 20th of December 2012. You get what you vote for. US credit rating is about to be downgraded once again.
Approval rating bump, that's real life. I live and die by the polls, but that is directly related to him cleaning up his own tariffs mess. So that's moving from the 145% tariff on China to just 30%, where, you saw the CEO from Walmart, I presume, saying that the prices are going to go up. So we'll wait for that.
It was another eventful week for the president as he gave Fox News The Five hosts plenty to discuss, most notably his trip to the Middle East, where he could be seen saluting Saudi military officials and singing the praises of a regime that he once lambasted as supporters of terror.
Unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior. Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. Not a gift to me, it's a gift to the Department of Defense, and you should know better. Why don't you give back the money that you've taken from certain countries that treat certain groups of people so horribly? You should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet.
And while some hosts were referring to it as a masterclass, others, not cocooned off from reality, were on hand to point out that, well, this isn't the case. While also bringing the news to her co-host that further reiterates the dire state of the economy under the current administration. Host Jessica Tarlov was quick to inform her co-hosts that the US credit rating was downgraded by Moody's Ratings on Friday, highlighting investor concerns about the government's growing debt.
All right, Jessica, masterclass. It's not really in dispute. So my question to you is, how big of a masterclass was this?
Not in dispute at all. Approval rating bump, that's real life. I live and die by the polls, but that is directly related to him cleaning up his own tariffs mess. So that's moving from the 145% tariff on China to just 30%, where, you saw the CEO from Walmart, I presume, saying that the prices are going to go up. So we'll wait for that. And while we were in the commercial break, Moody's downgraded our credit for the first time in the agency's history. So all good news all around, masterclass. In terms of the big headlines, anytime that we're not talking about the $400 million bribe that he's taking from the Qataris. And the jet is a good one, but
it's been around forever.
What?
It's been around forever, that so-called bribe. They were talking to the Biden administration about it.
Yeah, and who didn't take it? Joe Biden. And who did
we
take
got it for
Donald
free.
Trump. Anyway,
Biden would probably buy it, give it to Hunter.
Hoodles. He has all of these big headlines, right? We're getting all of this investment, like the $8.5 billion out of Qatar for Texas energy company McDermott. That was already announced in 2023 and 2024. Abu Dhabi, he says, a new $200 billion. That's a cloud computing deal with Amazon, also announced during the Biden administration. Saudi is allegedly giving us $600 million. We haven't billion, I'm sorry. Haven't documented all of it, but we do know that the airport project was announced last August. So the Washington Post has documented all of this, that at least a half a dozen of the contracts that he's talking about happened under the Biden administration. And that is something that Trump likes to do. He likes to show up and then take credit for things that
what about the other half?
People did. The other half, I'll give it to you. $300 billion of the $600 billion. But don't go out there and say you got $1.4 trillion in investment when you didn't really. Or at least give a nice, signal to the previous guy and say, hey, actually,
there is
Joe,
no previous guy. We already know there was no Joe Biden. So it's kind of hard to give him any credit.
He does have a birth certificate, and we did see him. Yes. He's not African.
Moody's also highlighted the environment of heightened policy uncertainty driven by Mr. Trump's evolving trade priorities. Uncertainty in Trump. I mean, who could have predicted that? Am I right?
And so far, no deals have been announced, right? The grand hope, 90 deals in 90 days. That's at least what we were hoping for. Well, right now, we're just hoping for some big deals, and it's down to 83 days. And, well, the more this clock ticks down, the more trade and economic uncertainty will continue to tick higher.
Now, all this comes as the GOP-led House Budget Committee voted to reject a sweeping package for President Donald Trump's agenda on Friday, dealing another embarrassing setback to Speaker Mike Johnson and his MAGA Republican.
I don't think people who voted for President Trump thought that we would continue spending at President Biden's levels.
I don't see any way I can support more tax cuts and more deficit spending. We should not be increasing deficit.
I do fear that all the really large ticket items for reducing spending have sort of been excluded. So I have a feeling it's going to be wimpy on the spending cuts, and it's going to be maybe a little wimpy on the taxes too.
Some opting to take to Fox News to voice their disdain.
The House Energy Committee releasing its portion of the reconciliation legislation late last night. The bill cuts from Medicaid and adds work requirements and more frequent eligibility checks.
Acceptable.
Can you see yourself voting for this big, beautiful bill at all?
Not in the current structure, no. Again, I refuse to vote for something that's going to actually increase the deficits, exacerbate the problem from the current situation. Again, we shouldn't be talking about this right now. We should have been doing all the work, like I say, multi-step process. We'd already have the border funding, we'd have defense, we'd have $850 billion of real savings banked already. Plus, we could have extended current tax law, taken tax rate increase off the table. We could have had all that done, but unfortunately, decisions were made to do one big, beautiful bill. It's not beautiful. I'm sorry. It's not a big, beautiful bill. That's called rhetoric.
There's one thing.
It's mislabeling.
There's one thing that.
Senator, what do you need to see in this bill to be on board?
The problem is it's asking conservatives like myself to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. That's historic. No one's ever raised the debt ceiling that much. It will be a record for Congress to raise the debt $5 trillion. But also it indicates that this year the deficit will be over $2 trillion, but it means they're anticipating close to $3 trillion for the next year. It's really a slap in the face at those of us who are excited about Elon Musk and Doge and all the cuts. Where are the cuts? If the cuts are real, why are we going to borrow $5 trillion?
The vote in the Budget Committee was 16-21, with a band of conservative hardliners who are pushing for steeper spending cuts, joining all Democrats in voting against the multi-trillion-dollar legislation, leaving its fate uncertain as they break for a few days and delivering yet another blow to Trump's agenda.
I like to bring the receipts. So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities.
Does this tax bill continue the payroll tax on people's tips?
Yes, it does, Mr.
Overtime. The president said your overtime will be tax-free. Does this bill continue the payroll tax on overtime?
It does not exempt overtime from the payroll tax.
The president said he's going to remove taxes on Social Security. Does this bill remove taxes on Social Security benefits?
The legislation provides an increased exemption amount.
But does it remove taxes on Social Security benefits as promised by the president?
Does not change.
Essentially, this bill doesn't do as President Trump promised to eliminate taxes on Social Security, because some seniors will receive no benefit or less than full benefits from the additional senior deduction from this bill.
It turns out, after cutting Medicaid and cutting the Affordable Care Act and cutting nutrition assistance and cutting education programs and on and on and on, even after all of that, all of those cuts, as large as they are, only pay for about 25% of the tax cuts for the rich. So how does this legislation pay for the rest of it? More added to the national credit card. Our national debt will explode as a result of this, to the tune of almost $4 trillion more added to the national debt. I never want to hear, ever again, anyone on the other side lecture us about deficit and debt. No single piece of legislation in my time here in Congress will do more to add to the national debt than this one. The American people get it. They were asked a few weeks ago in one opinion poll, do you support cutting Medicaid to pay for tax cuts? 81% of the American people said no. And that was before the Congressional Budget Office confirmed that over 13 million Americans will lose their health coverage. Now, sure, you can spin numbers, you can spin statistics. It's the reason why Mark Twain once said there are three kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. You won't be able to spin the 13.5 million Americans who lose their health care as a result of this bill. No amount of spinning will convince them to believe something contrary to what they actually are about to live. I say to all of my colleagues here, we can do better. We can ensure that we have tax relief for almost every American, and we can do it in a way that doesn't rip away health coverage from more than 13 million Americans.
But if you were to ask Donald Trump how he felt about his own colleagues turning against him or the state of affairs in America, well, he'd likely go on a rant about Bruce Springsteen.
New Midas merch drop! Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more, all at store.MeidasTouch.com.